Hi, everybody. I'd just like to quickly introduce Anant, who is a senior at UB, a computer science student. He's going to be doing a workshop on app development within iOS. Anant, take it away. Take it away.
Hey, thanks, Logan. Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to Intro to App Development. My name is Anant, as Logan introduced. And today we are building an iOS app, which is pretty basic. It's a cards app that we'll be doing entirely programmatically. So we will be using, what that means is we will be using entirely code to generate our entire UI, front end and back end. So usually we have a storyboard functionality, which we use to build apps. We will not be doing that. We will be building the entire thing using pure programming, which is pure code, right? So a link was shared on Discord. If you could open that link at the very beginning, that would be great in order to follow along. And before we get started, let me demo what we are going to build today. And as you can see on the right side of the screen, this is my phone simulator. So what we are building is we are building a cards app that you can store the cards locally on your device. You can add a card using this plus button on the top right. It says enter the card title, and you can say, I'm just going to say, what's up, everybody, right? And then if I add this card, it's going to add it to my sequence of cards inside of my phone. And what I can also do above all that, I can click on this share button on the top right again, and I can share this with my friends and family and close ones, right? And this allows for active tool for sending birthday wishes and sending good wishes to all your friends, right? So you can share it with your friends, and what this does is sends you a priority of your friends, and you can also share it across all your applications like Messenger, Snapchat, WhatsApp, messages, mail, etc. And you can even airdrop it, and you can copy and save this inside of your albums, right? So hopefully you are as excited as I am. Let's get started. So first thing we'll do is we'll go to this link that was provided to you, and we'll copy this extension files right here, right? We'll copy all these extensions, entire thing that I've created for you guys to follow along. And we'll go back to Xcode, an application that is developed by Apple to allow developers to build amazing iOS apps. Now, what we do is you will go to, when you start Xcode, you will see three options on the left. You have to click on build a new Xcode project. When you do that, you will be on this window. You want to select iOS, you want to select app, and then you want to click on next. When you click on next, you will be asked for a product name. You can just say cards in this scenario, or whatever you want to name it. You can select a team. You can select the organization identifier. And for the interface, you select storyboard. For the lifecycle, you can select UIKit app delegate. And the language we are using is Swift. You can also build apps using Objective-C, but today we are going to learn Swift. When you click on next, it will ask you to create a Git repository on your Mac. Check that option and click create. I have already done that, and I will be moving on here, right? So when you have done all those steps, you will be presented with this window. So this is the view controller. So there's two files that's most important to us right now, right? The first one is view controller.swift, and the second one is the scene delegate.swift, right? So let's start with the scene delegate.swift. Inside of the function that says will connect to on the very top, you need to write this in order to get started. So you will say guard let window scene is equal to scene as a UI window scene, else return, right? So what this is doing is this is creating a window scene that will show up when the app is first launched, because this is the UI window that shows up when the app first takes place inside of the app, inside of the phone when the app is first opened by the user, right? And we need to do some more configuration to this. So window is UI window. You open the parentheses. You say the frame is, you use this window scene there. And again, this is just, we are just doing some setup before we can actually start diving into some actual code to build out our UI and functionality, right? Next thing you do is window scene. These are the properties provided to us by Swift. And you want to take that window scene and put it right there. And next thing that we specify is the root view controller. So the view controller is essentially instance that controls the entirety of our view, so including all the objects, all the elements, everything. And the root view controller is the one that is in charge. You can think of it like that, right? And in this case, we want a navigation controller, which takes care of our pushing and pulling of the view controllers and dismissing of those view controllers, right? And the root view controller we want is the view controller as we talked about earlier, right? So what this will do is we have a view controller.swift file, and the first thing that will be presented in the window would be the view controller, because we have specified that right here. That's the instance of that view controller that we're specifying, right? And the last thing we do here in this page is window.make key and visible, right? Hopefully that was easy to follow along. Trust me, this is only the setup part, nothing major here. All you need to do is just write this in the scene delegate file, all right? And now we move on to the next thing, which is the most exciting thing. And this is the view controller.swift, right? Now, when you come to view controller.swift, the first thing you can write to check it out is that view inside of the view did load, which is the function that is called when the view loads for the first time. You can say view.background color is equal to white, right? So let's check it out. You can click on this run button right here to run your app, right? And then when you run it, the first thing you'll see is the view loading up, right? And you can do the same thing right here. So just to, kind of drive the point forward, I can say .yellow, which is an easy way to see any color that the view is showing. So you can just click on dot here, and then this will show all the colors that Xcode has to offer, right? You can also have custom colors and whatnot, right? So we'll just go with white this time, and you can see the yellow color shows up on the right on the phone right now. Okay. Now, let's start actually building our UI. So in the view did load, we'll have two functions which take care of our entire UI. The first one will be setup navigation bar, and we'll be declaring them later. And the second one would be setup collection view. Now you'll receive these errors because it'll say cannot find setup navigation bar in scope because we haven't defined it. So the next thing we'll do is start to define these functions. Now in Swift, how you do that is you type in the keyword func, and then after that you just say setup navigation bar, right? And then you just do open parentheses and close, and then we have a valid function right here. And then the second one is setup collection view, which we just discussed, this one right here. And we have the same thing here. So we have now declared, the functions, and we'll be doing stuff inside of them. All right. Now, the first thing to do is to set up a title that we would want the navigation bar to have, right? So all you do for this one inside of setup navigation bar is you say site title, and then is equal to cards. Okay. Now, what this does, let's see what this does actually. So when you click on title, so you must have noticed a change here. The cards title shows up, right? And this could be any text that you want, right? In our case, the app is called cards, so we'll name it that. And we also, I want to see a large title. So let's do that. So for that, we can say navigation controller dot navigation bar dot prefers large titles to true. Okay. Now what does that do? Let's see. So there's two kinds of titles. There's a small title and there's a large title, right? The one you just saw is a small title, and this one is a large title, right? You must have seen a lot of these in the native Apple apps on your iPhone on iOS 11 or later, right? So next thing we want to do is we want to create two buttons that we had, the share button and the plus button to add the card, right? Now, how do we do that? Well, you could create instances of these buttons. So you could do add bar button item, right? And the thing that takes care of that is a UI bar button item, right? This is the API that takes care of the bar buttons on the top right. You can also put it on the top left or inside the navigation bar, anywhere you want, right? When you open the parentheses, it would show you a bunch of options. You want to select the one with image, style, target, and action, right? When you select that, you would have image, and in there you say UI image. You open the parentheses and you say system name, right? Inside the system name, you're looking to fill up plus dot square dot fill. Now, why do we do this, right? So we are using something called SF symbols here, which is Apple's first party app for all the symbols that you see in most iOS applications, right? And this is an amazing collection that allows developers to, import custom icons to their app, right? So we are using this icon right here for the share one, and we are using add, which is this one right here, which is plus.square.fill, right? So you have to download this application as a installed application from Apple's website, from the developer website, and then you can get started with SF symbols automatically, right? Moving on, we have the style. So if you click on dot, you can just say the style is plain. Press on tab, you will come to target. Target can be self. And for the selector, you'll say hash selector, and it would be an at objc method. You can say handle add for this one, right? Next thing we do is let share bar button item. So let's do that, because remember we had two buttons that we had on the top left part of the screen, top right part of the screen. So we'll do the same thing for this one. You open the parentheses, you choose image, style, target, action. And for the image, you have UI image, and you want to choose the system name. For this one, we have the system name as square dot and dot arrow dot up, because this is the one we selected right here. This is the one we want, and the title for this is square dot and dot arrow dot up, right? So we just paste that here. The style can be dot plain. Press on tab. Target can be self. Press on tab again, and the same thing we do here. Add pound selector, and the objc method can be called handle share. Let's keep it at that, right? Now, what we want to do next is we want to set these to our right. And how do we do that? We click on we say navigation item dot right bar button items, the one with an S. Right, so it's going to take an array of UI bar button items, and we just give it the two things that we prepared right here. So add bar button item and share bar button item, right? So add bar button item, comma, share bar button item, right? Now let's see what that does. I'm gonna minimize the window and run the app. Now it would fail because we haven't defined these functions, what these are, right? So just right now, let's say at objc func handle add. And similarly, we do the same thing for handle share, right? And now the error should go away because we have defined the functions right here, and we'll insert stuff into this soon. right? Now, when the app runs, we will see the two icons start appearing because we added them in these parts of the code, right? Now, I do like this color, but I wanted to, match the over, which is kind of an indigo-ish theme, given the icon of the the application is kind of an indigo bluish color. So I would like to do that with these two icons that we added. The way you do that is you say navigation bar dot tint color. That's the property you want to change, and you can just say system indigo, right? Now, when you run this project, you know what is going to happen, and let's see if that happens. Let's see. Okay, these are the two icons that have changed from blue to more of a system indigo, and we have done the property change, right? Moving on. So now let's do inside the add method, right? The handle add method is when the user presses on this button, and similarly for the share button, the handle share is called when the user presses on the share button, right? So let's do something in this one. So what we want to do is we want to have a pop-up that comes in to ask the user what they would like the card to be called, right? So this would be handled by a UI alert controller. That is the native way you present alerts inside of an iOS app. You wanna, when you start doing a parentheses here, you wanna click on title, message, preferred style, right? When you select that, the title can be enter card title. When you press on tab, the message can be nil for now, and the preferred style would be an alert. And then I would just go ahead and add a text field to this. Okay, and this should do it, right? So, and next thing we add is a button that comes inside of this alert so that the user can click on that button to confirm their selection, right? So we would have a submit action, which would be a UI alert action, right? This would take in a title, a style, and a handler. For the title, you can say add card. So when the user selects the add card, this would add it to the collection and show it up for them in the app, right? The style would be default. And when you click on handler, just click on enter, and this would show up. And just click on, you can select action here. And the code would be let answer with AC. We are going to take the AC from a UI alert controller. We take the AC, we grab the text fields from it, right? We want the first item of that, and we want to have the text of that text field, right? And now we do two things, right? We want to update the list that has all the cards. And the second thing we want to do is update the collection view that is adding everything to our list, right? So I'll make a function here which does that. So the function would be called add to list, right? And the add to list would take a and it would simply do two things. It would maintain my list that is fetching all the card titles that I have, and the second thing it's doing is setting it in the persistent storage, right? Now for the persistent storage, what you do is I'm gonna declare some variables here. So it's gonna be var card list, right? And this would be an array of a string. I'm gonna declare that as an empty string. I'm also gonna say let defaults is equal to user defaults dot standard. Now you might be asking, what is user defaults? So user defaults is a quick way to store, some properties locally on your iPhone, right? You do not want to store passwords into this, this framework, but what you want to do is you can set some Boolean value, you can set some user-generated values for persistent storage, and you can fetch it up from the iPhone itself later. So this is a persistent storage framework that Apple provides for developers to use, right? And there's one more thing that we can write here, just in case. We can say cell ID, right? And we'll use this later, but right now we'll use defaults and card list, okay? So in the add to list function, what we want to do is we want to update this list which we created. So we want to do card list dot append, and then we want to say this string, right? So this string would get added to this card list. And then we finally want to add this to our persistent storage so that we can fetch it later. So you want to do defaults dot set, and then the one you want to select is set value, and then for key default name. This is the one you select, right? And you just do card list here, and then you provide a key that can be card list. Keep in mind that this key needs to be same throughout our conversations regarding default, so that we can fetch it using this key specifically, right? So it's on a key value basis. So if this key is not same, you would not get anything out of this, right? Moving on. So we have this handle add function that we had. Now, I already have defined what add to list needs to do. So I can just say self dot add to list. And then the string in this case would be my string that I generated right here, right? And that would be answer, right? And then this next thing I want to do is, which would bring us to the most important part of the application, which is the collection view, right? When I was demoing the project at the start of this workshop, you saw a colorful card right here, right? And then we were swiping that card left and right to go between different cards, right? The UI element that we were using for that is called a UI collection view, and that is something we are going to set up now, right? So the first thing you want to do to set it up is pretty simple. Let's go here. So let's set up the UI collection view. We're going to call it collection view, and it's going to be a UI collection view. And this is how you define some. This is how you initialize the elements inside of Swift, right? So what we want to do is we want to say let CV is equal to UI collection view. Open the parentheses, right? It would call in for different methods. You want to select the frame and collection view layout ones. For the frame, you can say .0. And for the collection view layout, you're going to say layout, right? And this layout is not yet defined, so we're going to define it now. So let layout is equal to UI collection view flow layout, right? This takes care of the layout parameter for us. And the second thing you want to do is you want to set the scroll direction using this layout itself. So this is the property that determines whether the scroll is going to be horizontal or is it going to be vertical, right? And we want it horizontal in this case because you saw we were swiping left and right. So that means that it's horizontal swiping, not vertical, right? Vertical would be top and bottom, right? So up and down scroll. Okay, so we are going to have CV dot is paging enabled is equal to true, and we are just setting properties here for the collection view so that it acts the way we intend it to act, right? So next thing we do is CV dot background color. We want it to have a dot white in this case. Next thing we want to do is we want it to show the indicator, right? So there's going to be a vertical scroll indicator and a horizontal scroll indicator. So what these are is when you scroll in a web page, right, all the way to the right, there's a scroll bar that shows up, which is a signifier that the page is scrolling and where you are in the page, right? This is that indicator, right? So currently for this workshop, we're going to set it to false, right? And then the last thing we want to do is cv.translates auto resizing mask into constraints. So this is the a value that is determining the auto layout constraints, and we want to set it to false because we are doing it programmatically without using the frame object right here, right? Because the frame is 0, we want to position the collection view using our constraints, manual constraints, right? Which is called auto layout. And the last thing we do is return that CV within this code block, okay? One thing to remember is this is giving me an error which says cannot convert value of type parentheses to specified value type UI collection view, right? Just to solve that, you simply do open parentheses and close parentheses in a pair right here, and the error will just go away, right? This is actually calling the entire block right here. This is the execution block right here, right? So now that we have defined what collection view is, we have initialized it, we are ready to go with setting up the collection view, right? So how do we do that? Well, remember, this is the function that we had, set up collection view, right? We have already set up the navigation bar, which is all the top stuff that you see here towards the right on the phone. The second thing is set up collection view, right? In the collection view, there's a bit of setup that is required, right? So let's do that setup. So the first thing we want to do is say collection view. So this grabs the collection view that we had, that we just defined earlier on the top. You want to do register, right? Now, before I do that, I want to explain something that is based off of collection view. So collection view is a collection of different cells that scroll the way you want, right? And these cells are essentially a UI collection view cell object, right? So when you're configuring a collection view, you want to register a cell so that Swift knows what cell we want to show to the user, and so that there's a reuse identifier that can be used to generate those cells on the screen in a renewed format, right? So we want to select the register, the first one, which is the cell class, and we click on it. And for the cell class, we can just say UI collection view cell, as we discussed right now, because that's the registering framework, registering instance. We can say UI collection view dot self for this one, and for the reuse identifier, we are going to say cell ID. Remember the cell ID we created right here? This is that cell ID, right? And the next thing we do is collection view dot delegate is self, and collection view dot data source is also self, right? Now you might be wondering, what are these two properties? And they're going to give us an error right here. So wait for those right there. And the delegate is a callback function, right? So anything, if there's like a callback function that we want the Swift to know, that's what the delegate handles. And the data source takes care of where the data is coming from, right? Which is pretty self-explanatory, right? Now, when you click on these errors, it would say there's missing conformance, right? Now, what you want to do is to solve that problem is to click on fix, right? And what that will do is that will add the UI collection view delegate to confirm to the view controller class, right? And similarly, we want to do the same thing for UI collection view data source. So if you click on fix here, you'll notice that this has also been added to confirm to this class, view controller, right? Now, there's an error here. If you click on that error, it's saying us that it's not, the collection view is there. The collection view delegate and data source are there, but you are not including the required functions that we want, right? So all you have to do is click on fix. It will add two functions that the collection view needs to get configured properly. I'm going to take these functions and put them in desired right below setup collection view, okay? Now, so the setup is for the collection view is not done yet. So we have done the three properties that we wanted. We have registered the cell, we have put the delegate on it, we have put the data source on it. The next thing we want to do is position this collection view inside of our screen, which is something that is a very useful skill when it comes to iOS development. It's called the auto layout, or constraining the view to the screen in a specific position, right? So how do we do that, right? So we want to first place the collection view inside of the view, which is this entire view that you see on the screen, right? So we do view.add subview collection view, right? And the next thing we do is we have 4 anchors that we need to constrain any single element to the screen. The first one is the top anchor. The second one is the bottom anchor. There's a left anchor and there's a right anchor. There's other anchors as well, like center Y anchor, width anchor, height anchor, but we won't be using them for this workshop, right? So the first thing you do is set the left anchor. You say dot constraint. I want to constrain it to the view's left anchor right here, right? So that would be view dot left anchor. And I want to say that a padding should be applied towards the left. And I just want to give it a 20, padding of 20, right? And I just want to say in the end is active. Let's see, is active is equal to true, right? Now you will start figuring this out as we do collection view dot right anchor now. So collection view dot right anchor dot constraint. We do the same thing here. We wanted to constrain to the view's right anchor, which is this line right here. So view's left anchor is this, view's right anchor is this, top is this, and bottom is this. So view dot right anchor, we wanted to give it a 20 from the right, which is negative 20. And we'll say is active to true, right? The next thing we do is anchor it to the top anchor, which we constrained it using the same thing. And in this case, we want to do view.safe area layout guide dot top anchor. And we don't want any constant here, right? We don't want any padding here. So we'll just remove the padding parameter and we'll just say is active to true, right? And the last one that is left, you guessed it, is the bottom anchor. And we want to constrain it with no padding. So we'll just say view dot safe area layout guide dot bottom anchor, okay? And we say is active to true, right? So this might seem a little bit intimidating at first, but don't let it. As you practice iOS development and placing elements on the screen, auto layout is going to be your best friend, right? And this is what constraining an object programmatically on the screen looks like. You have constraints, you add it to the subview, and then you anchor it from all the appropriate dimensions, right? To place that specific object onto the screen, right? Okay, so now that we have done that, let's go on to the configuration methods that the Xcode provided to us, right? So let's do that. So we have number of items in section as the first function that we need to configure. So what we'll do is we'll say if let array is equal to defaults dot array for key card list, because that's the one we configured. And we want to cast it as a string array right here. We want to return the array dot count, right? So what this does is it's asking me how many cells do you want in a specific section, right? So what is basically saying is how many cells do I want, how many swipeable cells do I want on my screen, right? And the answer should be, well, I'll take that array that I saved in defaults, right? And then I just want the count, the number of elements in that array, right? That's what I've done. If it does exist, right? So that's what this if let is doing. If it's a nil property, then the app might crash. So that's why we need an if let right here. Or otherwise, we can just say return 0, right? If this array does not exist, or there's nothing in this defaults value, so we can just return 0 otherwise. Okay. Now the next thing that we configure is the cell for item at function. So let's do that. So first we need to create a cell. So that is let cell is equal to collection view dot dequeue reusable cell, which is the function we are going to use. And you want to use the with reuse identifier for, that's the one you want to use, right? The reuse identifier would be cell ID, like we discussed before, and the index path would just be simply index path from this function right here. Okay. Now we want to configure this cell in a way that we like for this app. So I've already done that. So let's do that right now. So we have cell.layer.corner radius is equal to 20. So corner radius is used to round the corners of the cell, right? And you'll see it when we demo it. I want the background color of the cell to be dot random. Now we haven't added the 3 functions that I gave as extensions. So let me add those from here. Copy these and paste these here inside of the Xcode window. So I'm going to copy and paste these right here. Functions are now available to me as extensions. So I'm going to create these for them, right? Now I can go here and just gonna comment these out because I had these already, right? And these errors should go away. And yeah, okay. So we have cell.background color is random, and the next thing we do is, and as you can see, these errors are now gone because I removed the redeclarations. You won't have to do that. I had just other files set up there, right? So now we want to add the title label, which is going to be a sublabel which has all the text inside of that cell, right? So that's what we are adding now. It's going to be a UI label, right? And when you open the parentheses, it's going to be a frame. You type in CG rect, and you say X, Y, width, and height. That's the one you want to select, okay? For the X, you can say 20. I've already configured these properties so that the cell looks good. So you can experiment with those. I encourage you to do that. But for now, since we are limited on time, let's go with the set properties. So width would be cell.frame.width minus 40, and the height would be cell.frame.height minus 40 as well. Okay. Now the next thing we do is have an if condition. So we have if defaults dot array for key card list is not equal to nil, right? So we are checking if the array is nil or not. If it's not, then you take that array, right? You take that array from the defaults dot array for key card list, and you put it as, you cast it as a string array, right? And the next thing you do is title label. So the UI labels have different properties, including, right, attributed text, draw text, font, highlighted text color is highlighted, and many others. So we are going to configure those properties now, right? So title label.text would be array, which we created here, and it would be index path.row, which gives us the index of the row that we have configured for this array, right? So this takes this element. The index path.row is an index that fetches that specific index from that array and returns that as a text for the title label, right? The next thing we do is title label dot number of lines. We'll just say to 0. What this does is it's giving us multiple lines for that title label, right? Instead of just one. So next thing we do is title label dot font, right? And these should be pretty self-explanatory. This would set the font of it. We want the board system font, and the size would be a 90, let's say, because I've already configured those. The next thing we want is the text color of the label. So I'll just say dot white right here. And next thing I want is title label dot adjust font size to fit width, right? What this does is, if the title label is small in size, right, the text would not get cut off, right? It would reduce the font size so that it fits the entire width of that label, right? So that the user can see everything there is, but in a shortened font, right? And the last thing we do is you want to do cell.content_view.add subview title label, so that we actually have it inside of the cell, right? So that is done. Now it says missing return in a function expected collection view cell. Is giving that because we have created the cell, we have configured the cell, but we haven't returned it yet, right? So we want to return the cell right here. And we will just return it like so. Okay. So we have returned the cell now, and the errors are all gone. All right. So let's move on to the next thing, right? The next thing is one more function that we want to write, which is called size for item at. Now you'll wonder that this is not appearing as autocomplete. The reason for that is that we haven't conformed to a protocol, which is the UI collection view delegate. Let's see if the autocomplete comes in. Yep. UI collection view delegate flow layout, right? You want to conform to that in the view controller class, and you want to come down and retype that size for item at, and there it goes. It shows up right there. You want to select that, and what this is doing is this is telling the compiler what size of the cell do we want, right? Now I've already pre-configured this to save time, so you want to return a CG size where it would have a width and a height. The width would be view.frame.width minus 40, and height would be collection view dot frame dot height. Okay, and we want to configure one more function, which is minimum line spacing for section at. And for that, we want to return a 0, right? Now, what this function does is this is the minimum spacing that is there between two consecutive cells, right? Two successive cells. And so in this case, we do not want any spacing, so we'll just return a 0, just like that, right? Now, the one last thing we want to do, we had discussed that this share button has, shares, the card with your friends and family and whoever you'd like in your contact address book. So what we want to do for that is we want to create an extension of the view controller class like so. And we want to say at objc func handle share, right? And I noticed that I had already created this function somewhere here. So add to list is fine, but you can delete the handle share from here. We'll just create an extension for that like we're doing now, right? So at objc at handle share, inside that you say guard let image is equal to view dot snapshot. Okay, and what this does is this takes the snapshot of that card that we are selecting and then gives that to us in an image format, right? Else you can return. So we use this guard let and else returns to avoid getting the app to crash, right? So next thing we do is let items, and then we have an array which we include this image inside of that array, and we simply use first-party framework which is called UI activity view controller, and you open the parentheses and you want to select activity items and application activities from that, right? The activity items would be items like we created above right here, and the UI activity in this case can just be nil, right? And all you want to do is now present this controller to the screen, and you want to say which one do you want to present is the AC, and you want to say true, and that's going to do the presentation for us on the screen, right? And let's see if the errors are gone. They're gone. Okay. Now, what else is left to configure for us? Well, you must have noticed that we left the handle add function incomplete. So the reason for that is we hadn't created the collection view at that point. So now that we have created that collection view, we can simply say self.collectionView.reload data, right? If you remember, we had discussed when the user says add card, this would take the text from that text field, add this to our local list, and then update the collection view to show us the updated cards that the user has added, right? Similarly, we want to also give the user one more option, which is to cancel it if they want to cancel the request, right? So how would we do that? Well, it would be the same process. It would be a UI alert action, and we would say title should be cancel, style would be .cancel right here, and in the handler you just press enter and just say action in the place of the placeholder, right? And the action it should do is it should dismiss the view controller with an animation of true and completion of nil. Okay. So we have two actions right now. We have a submit action and we have a cancel action, right? We haven't added these actions to the alert controller. So let's do that. ac.add action. The first one is going to be submit action. And we do the same thing for the cancel action, right? The cancel action, right? So, right. And the last thing we do is present this, alert controller when the handle add method is called, right? So you present it with AC, animated true, and you can remove the completion block like so. So this will present our alert controller when the user clicks on handle add, right? So the last thing that is left for us to configure now is to configure the setup navigation bar to have the correct data cycle inside of the app, right? So right now we are not doing anything with that array, if you must have noticed. So let's take care of that. Inside of the function setup navigation bar, you want to go right above this system indigo line, and you want to say if defaults dot array for key card list it has to be a string, so card list is equal to nil, right? Then we want to set that, right? We want to set that as an empty array for the key card list, okay? So what this is doing is we are checking if that defaults value inside of the persistent storage, if it's nil, we want to set that as an empty array for that same key, okay? If it is not, on the other hand, we want to say that my card list that I created as a variable right here, which is the card list right here, I want to set that card list to be my defaults dot array for key card list, and I want to cast this shortly as a string, right? And I will cast this as a string right here. Okay, so let's see if everything is completed from the app point of view, from all the elements on the screen and everything else. And looks like we are good to go in that sense. So if I'm going to run this app right now, and this collection view, you must have noticed that the collection view configuration took time. It's just because there's a lot of parameters that you want to check before you can actually get the collection view to work. So, well, we don't see anything. If we click on the plus sign right here, it does show this alert right here that we configured using this handle add method. And it's presenting this in an animated true fashion. I can click on cancel and it will just go away, right? If I click on the plus again, I want to say, let's see what we want to say. I want to say hello at UB hacking, right? And I want to click add card, right? And there we go. It adds this card to my collection of the cards, and it would say hello at UB hacking, right? Now there's only one card. I want to enter multiple cards on my app. So I can say, what's up? So what's up? I can add this card, and this goes right here. You also might have noticed that the random function that we provided in the select collection view setup, it generates a random color for the red, green, and blue, the RGB values. And so every time I scroll left or right, it switches colors, which is pretty cool, right? And let's add a few more of these. We can say happy hacking and add this card. Okay, so you see this problem that is coming in here, right? Why is that? Well, it's overlapping one text over another. Let's solve that issue, right? So when you go to cell for item at, you want to go right below this corner radius, and you want to say for each subview in cell dot content view dot subviews, right? Which are all the subviews that the cell currently has, right? All the subviews that are part of that cell, right? And you want to just remove that subview from their superview. Okay, what this would do is every time the cell reloads, the superview, the subview is removed from the superview, and the new cells are laid out in a fresh manner, right? So let's try those out. So it's running, the app is loading, and let's see. So if you scroll here, what's up, and happy hacking, right? And we have configured this. You can see the cells are switching colors between every swipe, right? So these are like multicolored, randomly generated colors that are coming in for the cells. And you guessed it, we can also share these cards with your friends. So you can have, so I can select it, you can share it with your friends. I can share it across my applications like Messenger, Snapchat, Slack, Facebook, and others. I can also copy it. I can save it to my photo library, so print it and also save to my files. And if you also happen to have an Apple Watch, you can create an Apple Watch face using this card, right? So we have about 5 minutes. So let's give something else as a card. We can say, make sure you demo, right? Which is important during UB hacking. Make sure you demo, right? And these are the cards that show up. Well, I hope you enjoyed the intro to app development workshop. Feel free to reach out to me during UB hacking. Best of luck and happy hacking. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you so much, Anand, for your workshop, and see you guys for upcoming resume roast. Thank you.